Welcome to the Daily Objective. We are once again, as we will be doing in the coming weeks, I think quite a bit, and as we have been doing, we are once again talking about British politics. I'm joined by Alejandro today to talk about, the title is, as you may have seen, is specifically dealing with Michale Gove. This is not going to be an entire episode about Michale Gove. We'll give him what he deserves, and then we will talk a little bit about the Conservative Party in general, and Liz Truss, the Prime Minister's speech earlier today in the Conservative Party conference, which I believe wraps up the conference, right? This is the last day. So yeah, in the UK, for our US viewers, conferences are a bit different. It's an annual thing. I think maybe do they have two of them? They have one in March, right? But it's not as big a deal. Or
I don't follow that kind of stuff that often.
But yeah, anyway, the conference is this big thing that happens around this time of the year, and Labour, they have them at around the same time. Labour had their conference last week, and Labour is leading in the polls by a lot. And so this week we saw the Conservative Party conference, and what was unique about this Conservative Party conference, usually the party conference, differences within the party don't come out there. That's where you show your support for the leader. Even one I specifically remember when the Conservatives were in opposition was Duncan Smith, who was the leader of the Conservative Party, I think, for 2 years and never actually got to run in a general election. And the party was against him, but they, at least at the conference, pretended to be on his side, and then got rid of him very shortly thereafter. Here, the Conservatives and members of Parliament from the Conservative Party, former ministers, they are not pretending to be with Liz Truss. Liz Truss lost much of her party because she is not following the, let's say, left-wing policies that the party has been known for its time in leadership. It is saying it wants to cut taxes, cut regulation, legalize fracking, do all sorts of things that are very free market oriented, and that's not what the Conservative Party is about. And leading the efforts against Liz Truss, as he often does, is the backstabber in chief of UK politics, Michale Gove. Now, so we will talk about him a lot, and but not for the entire show. And Michale Gove is, let's put it this way: one of the reasons we won't talk only about him is because, like, when I think of Michale Gove, there's a lot that comes to mind, but this is, we try to keep it family friendly here, and I don't think I can do that if I say everything that I think. And yeah, just the thought of him makes me think we should now go to Alejandro for any thoughts that you have, so that I can calm down.
So I think we could go to a more general kind of view, and maybe if we have some viewers which aren't maybe acquainted with Ayn Rand or objectivism, maybe they can grasp more or less where we're coming from analyzing this kind of stuff. And maybe you can take a look at how we analyze or take a look at politics. Maybe it's different from what you're used to. So basically, what I advocate, what I think Razi as well advocates, is for a laissez-faire economy and society, where basically the role of the government is that to protect rights, specifically the right to think, act, and enjoy your happiness, which are essentially the right to liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness. We demand nothing less and nothing more. And we know that we don't live in that kind of world today, and we haven't lived in that kind of world maybe even never. Maybe we approached that 100 and 150 years ago, but we're by no means close to that world. And basically, we don't expect that that will happen in the next 10 years or 20 years. So I think we should be seeing what the world will have, or what we should take a look at the world, is how to analyze the current events in light of what will bring us to a better place to advocate for freedom or to have a freer place in the future. And that's a real difficult issue where people within the same ideas will have very different opinions and very different ways to assess things. And I think that brings us to a question of, given the knowledge system of our society, of where we live now, what can we expect? What's the best that we can expect to for the next years, or for even the less distrust government that she can get away with, or that she can implement, that will bring us to a better place? And I think there are several different stuff that we can talk about, but I think overall that should be our guiding principle. Is this going to be something that will bring us to a better place or not? And we should always be aware of what I call the Chinese boxes. I don't know if that's a common word in English, which basically says that they're implementing some stuff and then they are backtracking later. Something we can discuss later, Razi. But that being said, I think that the knowledge system and whatever the world we're expecting, or that can be expected today, is interesting in the MPS reaction to this trust, because they are more or less an indicator, a barometer of what the culture would like or wouldn't want in here. And I think one of the ways in which one can analyze this guy Grove is he a coward, knowing that he really can do better stuff that people will accept, or is he feeling himself like a lot of pain behind and thinks that if he doesn't do this, like the 45% cut, which we will talk about more, is like the death of the party and everything else?
Yeah, and in that context of what we can expect today within politics, and the context, by the way, of those of you who watched our special episode of the Weekly Objective on Sunday, why we were praising Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, even though we would like to see, of course, reforms that go much further, much sooner. But again, as we said on Sunday, within the current landscape, what they were proposing was already rejected so widely and by their own party that it tells you a little bit about this, about what's possible. And if you look at Michale Gove, so if you look actually at Liz Truss, the way she backtracked on the 45% of the cut of the 45% income tax for the highest earners, she said something to the effect of, we listened, it wasn't politically viable, and it was a distraction. It's something that was mentioned. It was a distraction from the rest of the policies. It wasn't her saying, it's wrong to cut taxes. She kept saying, and she said that in her speech today, it's right. Whereas Michale Gove is clearly, trying to go with whatever, trying to go with the flow as he sees it. And I mean, I think you might be being a bit generous to him, saying maybe he, knows this is wrong. Maybe it's difficult for him. I don't think anything's difficult for him. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about a few of the episodes in his history, his political career. And no, I think he enjoys this. I think he enjoys it just because it's backstabbing. I mean, I think if it was the other way around and somebody was trying to raise taxes and it was difficult for them, he would say cut taxes, not because he thinks it's right, but because he enjoys the backstabbing. But yes.
Sure. I mean, of course, every time that we expect something political, we will expect these kind of characters. Like, I mean, Game of Thrones is like the epitomizing of this kind of phenomenon where people look smiley and friendly, and then a second later they just grab a knife and stab you in the back. I don't expect politicians to be different today? I mean, I would like to. I definitely expect anyone to be honorable, but in politics, we know that people are like this, and they're attracted to these kind of things for very specific reasons, power in particular. Although I think the crucial issue here is, as I was telling you, like, where do you think we could be going if there are these kind of structures trying to set themselves like a seat block, and trying to reduce any kind of good agenda that the Conservative Party could go? What do you think, Razi? Like, is this a natural thing from the Conservative Party to do, or are we seeing a different kind of Conservative Party acting?
So I mentioned this on Sunday as well. I think the Conservative Party historically does this all the time, but this is, I've never seen anything like this. This is a new level of infighting. And one person whose name I can't remember, he's a former minister, conservative minister, and maybe he's an MP still, said in one of the fringe events at the Conservative Party conference that the whole system, the system in which by which Liz Truss was elected prime minister, which is the same system by which Boris Johnson became prime minister and Theresa May before him, there's a leadership race. Members of parliament from the Conservative Party vote each time the person with the lowest number of votes gets eliminated. Then the last two go to a vote of the total party membership, the people, if you will, of the Conservative Party. And so this person said that this is not a good system because MPs know better than the voters. And this is generally, I think, the way. I mean, we know this is the way the left thinks. The people in government know better than you know how you should live your own life, let alone who should be your leader. But it was still astonishing to read that he was saying, us MPs know better than our members who should be prime minister. And now they're following through on this. The Conservative Party membership voted for the wrong person as far as conservative members of parliament are concerned, and they're not having it. So where are we going? I don't know exactly. Unfortunately, it's not what I'd like to see, which is Theresa May and Kwasi Kwarteng having many years to start implementing these reforms and keep implementing more and more of them. I think we're going towards either the party defeating and getting rid of Liz Truss, which is something that has been mentioned. Boris Johnson coming back in the next couple of months is something that has been mentioned as a possibility. Or, of course, she will lose to Labour and in the next general election, which is predicted to be in April 2024. And the one thing I would enjoy if that happens is seeing, because people vote for a specific member of parliament, seeing some of these horrible people like Michale Gove lose their seat. I'm hoping, I don't know if he actually will, but that's the silver lining that I can find in what I think is a certain march towards a Labour government, even regardless of whether Liz Truss is the prime minister when the next election happens.
And I agree. I think that's crucial thing. Like, what do these actions entail? Whatever one thinks about Liz Truss's campaign or what she is moving Britain towards, I think there is a big question on and how MPs should behave. And I think that if they backed Liz Truss, they at least would have the hope of this economic plan of her becoming successful to some extent, and then they can build upon that, and that they can more or less gain some reputation and popularity because of that, because they supported it. But if they backtrack and they try to stop it, now they won't only be associated with the Conservative Party, but they will also be associated with trying to undermine whatever plans the PM was trying to do. So I think this is a completely losing strategy, and I think it can be explained through very few kind of ways. So could you explain a bit more about the backstabbing of Gove that you were telling, like that he maybe enjoys this kind of attitudes?
Just on the general point that you made, I think, the conservatives don't seem to realize if being elected, winning elections is what they really care about, which is unfortunate, but it doesn't even look like they want to do that, because if somebody wants left-wing policies, they will vote for the left. They're not going to vote for conservatives. So I don't really know what they're after. And yes, the one that's most memorable to me is the 2016 leadership race in the Conservative Party. So David Cameron was the prime minister from the Conservative Party from 2010 until, I believe, until this leadership race in 2016. He announced, maybe 2013, he announced the referendum on Brexit, and then it took place in 2015. He lost, and he then had to, no, maybe the Brexit referendum was 2016. Anyway, around that time, he lost the referendum, and then he resigned on the morning when it was clear that he lost, and then the obvious choice for many was Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson and Michale Gove were two of the leaders of the campaign for Brexit, the campaign for Britain to leave the European Union. And from what we hear, there was some sort of agreement between them. They were working together. They were the closest of political allies, and Boris Johnson would then become the next prime minister, because it was clear that David Cameron, if he lost the referendum, would not stay in office. And Gove was, I think, the leader. What was it? The campaign manager. He was Boris Johnson's campaign manager before the campaign started. And on the morning that Boris was scheduled to officially announce that he's running for leader, Michale Gove then announced that he's running for leader. And I have some quotes here somewhere. So not only did he announce that he's running for leader against the person he was supposed to be, whose campaign he was supposed to be managing, but he said, I have come reluctantly to the conclusion that Boris cannot provide the leadership or build a team for the task ahead. And he went on about, he had this press conference, he went on about how he can't support Boris. So he not just stabbed him in the back a little bit, he threw him completely under the bus. Boris ended up not running. Michale Gove ended up not making it to the final two. Theresa May ended up becoming a terrible prime minister. But this was Gove's doing. And somehow Michale Gove also, despite this and despite people knowing what to expect from him, he was not only a minister in David Cameron's cabinet, but he was in Theresa May's cabinet and even in Boris Johnson's cabinet after he stabbed him in the back when Boris eventually did become prime minister. And one of the reasons for this is, at least this is what I read from the more trustworthy sources in the media. He is a former journalist. He used to work for the Times. His ex-wife, I think they split up last year, is in the Daily Mail, which is another major newspaper. So he is, he knows people. He's the kind of guy you don't want to mess with if you don't want people trashing you in the newspapers, which is really it's something that's difficult to respect as a person, but in terms of politics, that's the kind of thing that works.
Now, I think one of the things that we should make clear is that, now that you were talking about Boris Johnson, is that I mean, I personally dislike Boris Johnson in every single way. I really can't stand him. I would prefer not to encounter him on the street. Um, and and I also don't completely support all the agenda that Liz Truss has. I actually don't like the idea that she's putting a lot more of debt into our pool already pretty high. And we're left to see if she's able or willing to get the deregulation agenda that she's wanting to make. And actually, that takes me to a point that I was trying to make of the Chinese boxes, or there are also other stuff which are called the trial balloons, which are sometimes whenever a bill is set through or proposed or leaked, they basically put up really tough stuff or like things that which the media will react very aggressively to, so that the other parts of the rule or the law will not be that overlooked or won't be that checked as the other part. So the media criticizes one part, and when the discussion comes up, they take away that part and that they pass the whole bill through. So do you think that the regulatory agenda, the regulation agenda that Liz Truss is trying to, or supposedly trying to take away, do you think that this could be a trial balloon? Do you think that she was trying to, for instance, say the cut of the 45, that the cut of the 45% on the highest income? Do you think that could have been a trial balloon to set off the people like Michale Gove?
Maybe. I mean, it's not a good look in either case. I mean, she was, you know, basically she was attacked for her policies, and now she's also kind of attacked for the U-turn. So it's maybe. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. I said this on Sunday as well. I went through some of the list. There was a lot of good stuff they announced. Um, so if they can get the rest of it through, and of course the 45% tax, canceling that highest rate of tax, it was kind of mentioned that this is not dead. It's just not happening right now. So let's hope so. And another thing I would hope so is and I don't know enough about the all the details of how British politics works, but I think the prime minister has at least some influence about who stands as a conservative candidate in different constituencies, right? So if she can get rid of some of these conservative MPs before the next election, that would be great. I think in any case, unfortunately, I think the voters will get rid of them if she doesn't. But I definitely would think this should be very high on our agenda now. If she does want any chance of really making the changes that she seems to realize are right, then she would need to change who's with her in Parliament. And one of the things that I really liked in today's speech was she actually said that tax cuts are right, not just economically, but morally. I mean, how often do you hear that? She said, she also said the government doesn't spend its own money, it spends the people's money. So yeah, it was, there was a lot of positive there. There's a few super chats. I want to quickly go through them. So thank you, Marialine. Paulo Zeus. Marialine again says, this all sounds pretty bleak for Britain. I agree, but at least the people at the top now are presenting something that previously was not a part of the conversation. Now it's a part of the conversation where most of the conversation is against it, but it's at least there. So that's the positive that I would definitely take from this. Marvin says, I was shocked by the general reaction to the policies in terms of how much outrage can be generated without mentioning any content at all. Yes.
I was shocked too. And that goes to the knowledge system. Like I was like 20 years ago, you would say, and you would hear about structural reforms in countries like Germany, for example, Marvin. they were having a lot of issues with the labor market. And when Merkel came, basically one of her major policies was to change the whole labor market over there. And one of the things that I've been preparing over the last week or so to discuss these things with Razi is that I read the IMF Article 4, which is like the Bible of recommendations for any country, and I read the one for the UK. And basically, there are no recommendations on structural policies. Everything is like, take a look at fiscal policy, monetary policy, this kind of issue, take a look at inequality, whatever. That's it. There are no big things of a country that needs radical stuff going on. And people don't want it, and all the time it's becoming less important for the discussion. I mean, it's becoming less relevant for the discussion, but it's more important that these kind of things are implemented, especially with the UK's lagging economy.
And by the way, if anybody has been considering whether or not you should support the Ayn Rand Center UK, that's just one the reason. Alejandro reads the IMF founding documents, so you don't have to. Although I'm sure you all want to, but he does it for us. So thank you.
They're not that bad. I mean, not that difficult to read. I mean.
All right, I'll maybe we can do a whole show about it someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a few other super chats. Bonnie asks, is Liz Truss for individualism or still for the common good? I mean, she's definitely not an objectivist, and a lot of the language in support of some very good policies is very collectivistic. But again, within what you can expect, this is beyond what you can expect from somebody who has made it as far as becoming the prime minister of this country. She is, like I said in answer to Mary-Aline, she is injecting into the conversation, into public discourse, ideas that were previously not there, and they are a big move in the right direction. Again, very likely too big a move in terms of what the culture is ready for. Any comment on that before I go to the next super chat?
No, not really.
So Marvin says there is a record amount of vacancies in the UK. Are some conservatives still against immigration? Immigration would help growth. Well, maybe that's why they're against it. I mean, yes, a bunch of them are, and that's another one of the things that surprised me when I looked at the things that the media was reporting as potential policies of Liz Truss's government. This is nothing that has been officially announced, but there was talk about her loosening up the immigration regulations, which is really unusual for a conservative government to do. And I think it was today that the Home Secretary seems to not be on the same page. And I think today she said something about, what was it? Something about illegal immigration and about refugees and people coming in. First of all, we have a solution for the illegal immigration problem. It's the same solution that we have for the illegal drugs problem. Legalize it. If somebody comes here illegally, but what they want to do is work, they should absolutely be allowed to, and it doesn't matter what work they want to do. If they want to come in here and commit crimes, there should be some very strong, much stronger than we currently have, law enforcement and punishment for criminals. And we have a lot of homegrown examples of that stuff. So as far as immigration goes, hopefully the conservatives could do some positive things, but I don't think they will.
And also, if you're interested in that, you should cut benefits, which is another thing that we wanted to talk about, Razi. I was seeing the statistic today. The UK government spends about 45 to 50% of GDP. 40 to 50% of GDP. That's like, imagine everything that is produced in the UK, everything, every car, every service, every single final good that is produced, everything, and just chip away 50%. And imagine that size being that of the government in the economy. And part of those benefits are made for people who are unemployed or basically who don't want to work. And those are kind of incentives for this kind of people not to hire themselves. And actually, one of the things that this guy Gove is trying to do right now is that he wants to increase these kind of benefits. He wants to for this to be adjusted according to inflation against what this process is saying, which is basically halving them and increasing them in the same degree which the average of the workers' salaries are going to increase. Which, if that isn't good enough for me, I think it's crazy the idea that you should increase benefits even more when there's such a degree of hiring today.
Yeah, and I think in Kwasi Kwarteng's mini budget speech, he also said something about making it a little bit more difficult to get at least job seekers allowance. So yes, even on this, the government is good, and the rest of the Conservative Party, led by Michale Gove, is bad. We were gonna talk a little bit about Grant Shapps as well, but is he worth even mentioning? I mean,
just tell who is he? I'm not really sure. I mean, I know
Yeah, he's a former transport secretary. He also made some, threats in the media about getting rid of the prime minister if he doesn't listen to him and his people. But yeah, they're not worth it. So, well, we say that after we dedicate an episode to Michale Gove, but I think from time to time we'll do that. But yeah, I think this is.
So why has he been called the snake, Michale Gove? I think we didn't touch that.
Yes, I guess because he's kind of a slimy piece of, well, I don't know. Yeah, we should do some research for the Michale Gove episode too.
Okay.
And we also have another super chat from Mary Aline. And yeah, anything else, Alejandro, on this topic?
Thank you very much for the super chatters.
Yeah, thanks again for everybody for the super chats. And please, if you haven't already done so, please like this video and share it. And yeah, thank you for
just maybe one thing. Like, I want people to. I think one of the super chat was saying that things look quite grim, and I think the fact that there is this kind of government more or less changing the speech, trying to talk a bit more about things that should be done, is a good sign and a good direction. And I think part of the reason why Razi and I discussing this kind of stuff is because we don't want that good thing, that little good thing, to fade away. And I think we're seeing threats to this. But the fact that this kind of little changes can be done, or at least in the public speaking, is really good.
Yes, and on the other side, like, we see that the fact that it's so difficult to get people on board with this is shows that in the long run we do need to change the culture, which is why once again I hope everybody supports the Ayn Rand Center UK. And tomorrow on the show, Nikos will be joined by Mo Lovett and by Baroness Claire Fox. She is in the House of Lords. She's a legislator in this country. So, and they will be talking about Battle of Ideas. Battle of Ideas is a weekend-long festival of 2 days of many, many panel discussions with many speakers. It's a fantastic event. I've gone to, I think the last 5 or 6 of them. Actually, no, there was a year that they skipped. Yeah, 5 of them. And yeah, I will be there as well. I will be speaking on one of the panels. Nikos is speaking on 2 panels. Don Watkins is speaking on 1 panel. Yaron Brook is speaking on 2 panels. So anybody, even if you're not in London and you can make it to London for that weekend, it will be worth your trip. We will also have an event the night before, an ARCUK event on the Friday night next week with Yaron, Don, and Nikos. On the Wednesday before it, we will have, for members only, an in-person communication boot camp, the first one ever, and this is a one-time only return of the communication boot camp with Don Watkins. So yeah, there will be a lot going on here next week and next weekend in particular. So yeah, hope to see some of you there, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.